All right, welcome everyone. Good day. Welcome to today's webinar, Planning for a Healthy and Resilient Supply Chain. While we have a lot of people from a number of different countries even attending with us today, so we're glad you can join us. My name is Christina Steiner and I'm the Marketing Director with AVATA. So I will be helping facilitate today's presentation. We've got a great lineup of presenters and content to cover. From AVATA, we have Neil Thomas, our CEO, and Kevin Martin, VP of Sales. From Oracle, we are excited to have Fesh Rao, Senior Director of Product Strategy for Supply Chain Planning. And you will be hearing from our two customers presenting their success stories and strategies today, Angie Sewell from DeRoyal and Rob Demkowski from Bimbo Canada. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. This is a brief overview of the agenda. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to hand this off to Anil.
Thank you all for joining today. My name is Anil Thomas. I'm CEO at AVATA. Appreciate all your time today. I know we're all busy responding to new challenges in our current environment. And it's a time when we're talking about resiliency as individuals, resiliency in our communities and our infrastructure, and of course, resiliency in our companies and supply chains. I know as supply chain folks, we're all used to dealing with changes and challenges. This is a little different, but I know we are all resilient and we'll get through the current coronavirus challenges together and come out of this better and stronger. For our customers, our long-term customers that are on the call today, thank you for joining. I want you to know we are here for you. Let us know however we can help today, tomorrow, as we go through this together. For our customers that are in the healthcare industry, helping serve the public through this challenging times, let us know. We're happy to help on a pro bono basis as well. We want to do whatever we can to help you. We are already responding in a few ways, and we hope that some of them are helpful for you. Number one, we know that many of us are seeing changes in demand trends on a daily basis where some of these changes might have happened on a weekly or monthly or annual basis in the past. Spotting these exception trends on a daily basis quickly is critical and difficult. So our team has put together some exception reports that can help you quickly identify those and respond. Sometimes these are demand on an item changing and spiking up, but it could be demand shifting from on an item in one channel, say in the food service division, to a retail grocery channel in the trends that we're seeing today. Could be shifting from one region to another. And so we've already seen some of those trends happen, but as things progress and as things go back to the new normal, those trends are going to change again. So it'll be important to keep an eye on those trends throughout the coming weeks. Let us know if you want any help with those exception reports. We have DIY instructions, or we can help put those in place for you. Number two, we know that many of us are seeing new business processes or software scenarios that haven't come up before, that are unfamiliar. So our team will be holding office hours over the next few weeks, so you have an easy way to ask questions, brainstorm, get some advice, get some answers quickly from our team of experts and from your peers in the supply chain area. Number three, we know many of us are still working to get projects started during this challenging times while people are working remotely or continue to push forward with existing projects. We want you to know that we're used to doing projects remotely, and remote work is a normal part of life for our worldwide team. Let us know if you want any help with remote working best practices for your team. We remain digitally connected and pushing these projects forward, and we're ready to help there. For those of you that may be newer to AVATA, a little quick background. We've been a partner with Oracle and helping our customers improve supply chains for the past 20 years. A number of our team members have been in your shoes before running supply chains and dealing with these types of challenges. We have a full life cycle of support for consulting, getting projects done, and helping you with managed services as ongoing partners in operating your supply chain. We work across supply chain management, supply chain planning, ERP, and enterprise performance management, helping you link your operations and your supply chain and your finance functions. As we talk today about resilience, we strongly believe that a robust planning process is key to smart resilience. And this is true in good times as well as challenging times. Today, we're asking questions like, can our customers live without our products? That has a different meaning today than it did a month or two ago. We're also asking, can we afford multiple sources or increase capacity as we look at resiliency? Can we afford not to have it? Those are tough questions, and the answers are going to be different depending on your business and your supply chain. But we know that our supply chains are going to go back to normal, but it's going to be a new normal. It's going to be a little bit different than in the past. So I think we're finding that it's important that we prepare to link demand and supply planning with integrated business planning process and sales and operations planning that connects operations and finance. This helps us answer operational questions as well as the financial impacts of those questions. And knowing the impact of a potential demand disruption or supply disruption becomes a normal part of the sales and operations planning process. We believe that's half the battle in knowing and building resiliency into your new normal. Our guests today will talk about some of these topics. When it's time to adopt the new planning processes and tools, a repeatable and reliable path to success is more important than ever before. You can depend on our sales and delivery teams to have a repeatable way to work with you to, understand your business pain points and guide you to choosing the right best practices and solutions. Our team will then use repeatable templates and processes so that you get value quickly and then can add the nuances that are important to your competitive advantage. A few of our customers here on this slide, and can I say we're proud to support in a small way our customers who are playing important roles every day, but especially today in getting food and medical supplies to the public. Bimbo, Krispy Kreme, GoPuff are not only getting essential food to customers, but also getting a little joy to customers during a stressful time. Our customers in life sciences and medical devices who are getting critical supplies to hospitals and patients during this crisis include ResMed, Hologic, 3M, and DeRoyal. We're really proud to have two of these customers, Angie from DeRoyal and Rob from Bimbo Canada, on today's call. So again, thank you for joining today. We hope you get some good ideas today about supply chain resiliency. And now let me hand off to Sesh Rao from Oracle Product Strategies, who's going to talk about how to build resiliency in supply chains. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Sesh.
Thanks, Anil. Thanks for the opportunity to speak about Oracle perspectives on supply chain resiliency. I'm going to talk about some high-level themes about how to build resiliency in supply chains using Oracle Supply Chain Planning Cloud. Just a quick word about why we need resilience. So what keeps a lot of supply chain executives awake at night is the complex risk that exists in the supply chain. For example, the supply chains are very global, and in many cases we are either sourcing globally at various parts of the supply chain or key production process. And there's always a constant surprise, either the supply disruptions or distribution disruptions or spikes in demand and so on. And again, we're made to do more with less, given the complexity and also the paucity of good talent and good resources. So new business model, it's an experience economy. The speed of innovation is very high, and there's a lot of digital disruption too in the process. So let's talk a bit about how supply chain, especially supply chain planning, is managed currently. So it is demand-driven supply chain planning, and typically It involves arriving at a good estimate, a one-number estimate of the market demand using a consensus process with various functional people like in finance and sales and marketing and production. And then taking this demand signal and propagating it backwards or upwards into the supply chain. And as the signal cascades backwards, we create a single supply plan. And the idea is that the more accurate this plan becomes, the more can the supply chain be executed to in the hope of realizing sales and operation goals, all the way from strategic S&OP goals to the more tactical operational ones. But then again, the plan, which strives to be accurate, is inherently inaccurate because of the uncertainty that keeps building up in demand, in supply, in delivery. And supply chains, especially these days, are never in steady state conditions. So the idea of continuous planning, which many enterprises do now, which is adjusting the plan based on changes in execution, while good and needed, actually creates a lot of nervousness in plans. These plans are difficult to translate into execution, and it decreases the stability in operations. So that said, that builds the case for building resilience in supply chain. And resilience in supply chain can be thought of in two different concurrent ways. One is to actually look at your supply chain design. And that has got concepts in segmenting your supply chain and taking advantage of the digitalization that's going on, talking about modeling a digital supply chain twin, and also looking into business continuity planning. So we'll talk about those in a bit. So that's on the design side. And on the response side, we clearly want more visibility into the extended enterprise, especially on the suppliers and the suppliers' supply chains, if you will. And then be customer-centric in understanding the consumption patterns and how we can respond differently to different customers, and also event-driven planning, which is supply chain response to various events such as spikes in demand and or supply disruptions. So here's a broad bird's eye view of how you can segment your supply chain. And typically it depends on how predictable the demand is and also the relationship or the priority of your customers, how important your customers are for you. And if you take these two axes, the various ways in which to develop various segments or various supply chains for your supply chain. So we're saying segment your supply chain into multiple supply chains or supply chain segments. And these segments can then be planned too with different resilience strategies. So for example, they can be an agile supply chain, in which case it would be demand-driven management of that particular supply chain, or a fully flexible supply chain where the predictability of demand is high, and also you have a very, very strong relationship with your customer. And these are customers who are very important to your business, in which case we probably need an inventory optimized, flexible supply chain. Or in the next case, where we have high predictability of demand, but then the customer relationship is weak or the customer is not of top priority, in which case you're looking at optimizing your costs and cost to serve. So that's a way to segment the supply chain. And a key enabler along with the segmentation is this whole concept of a digital twin, which is a digital representation of the supply chain, of the physical supply chain and the supply chain entities. And the idea is that the digital supply chain can be simulated with various changes in parameters, changes in supply, changes in demand, looking at different segmentation strategies based on near real-time situation of the supply chain using real-time data feeds, and then predict the outcomes, predict what can break down, predict what can be delayed, predict the bad apple suppliers, so that adequate supply chain response can be built in by way of resilience. So that's the concept of a digital twin, and current technologies allow ways to represent the digital twin, and these technologies are hyperscale clouds and a lot of fast, iterative, in-memory planning, maintaining multiple plans, running different scenarios, and using data science technologies of artificial intelligence and machine language. The next thing in design is business continuity planning. So again, we anticipate. And to be able to anticipate, we need to be able to do in-depth analysis of certain key things that keep changing in these segments. For example, how profitable are my customers? Who are my most profitable customers? What are my most profitable products? What does it cost to serve customers as a whole? What does it cost to serve my high priority customers versus my low priority customers? Who are my suppliers and suppliers, so that I can understand their performance and understand what the supply side risks are. So that's the whole notion of business continuity planning as a third key enabler of supply chain design. So the next bit of resilience is actually in the response management. So know earlier, respond faster. So understand what can break when as quickly as possible, and then act as quickly as possible to actually overcome and mitigate those disruptions. So keeping in this, and unfortunately, many enterprises don't have visibility beyond their immediate suppliers. But the idea is to improve supply side visibility by looking at the extended enterprise, looking at who supplies my immediate suppliers and their suppliers. So it's the end-tier supplier visibility and supply chain collaboration that is possible through Oracle Supply Chain Collaboration Cloud. So that's one aspect of response management. So I know my demand, I know how my demand is changing, and now I also know how my supply side changes are happening. So use those two to build in different ways. So two concepts, how do I manage my orders? And I would respond differently to different customers. For example, my high priority customers are the ones to whom I'll always cater to. And the low priority ones are the ones that probably would be preempted in case of supply disruptions or supply constraint situations. So here are three strategies. For example, high demand products can be allocated based on more flexible priority-based allocation schemes or fulfillment schemes. The more complex make-to-order products can be looked into by reprioritizing the demands based on customer importance, and then tackling the supply planning constraints to meet those high priority demands. And backlog management helps me prioritize this. And the other one is respond more strategically to frequent or unexpected changes in availability. So be resilient and flexible enough to do event-driven planning. Like there's a disruption that's happening, and alongside there's a demand shift. So how do I replan my supply chain based on most important customers first? Then this whole idea of customer centricity that we've been talking about is a main theme, and devise different inventory policies based on the different segments and do efficient replenishment management to these different segments based on the inventory policies. So look at the integrated demands, do the replenishments, look at the inventory policies and how to change them so that the different segments are catered to in different ways. So that would build resilience from the response management standpoint. Now, all this is possible through Oracle Supply Chain Planning Cloud. It's a complete solution, and it has demand management services, sales and operations planning services, supply services, and supply chain collaboration services. And these are all on the cloud. So they're cloud services, and they come in as an integrated package for process integration, end-to-end data integration, comes in with the latest technologies on analytics and cloud security and mobile and social for collaboration to unify, to view planning in a unified way for resilience and to empower planners so that business-driven actions can be taken together with the resilience features I described. So thank you very much. At this point, let me hand it over to Angie.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to present DeRoyal's journey to becoming a more resilient supplier, especially in such trying times. A little bit about me. I am the Senior Vice President of Information Technology at DeRoyal. I have been with the organization for 3 decades, and during that time, I spent most of my career doing software solution implementation along with business process improvement. So it's given me an opportunity to see a lot of different sides of the business and see how we can do things better as a company. We are in the healthcare business. We definitely are working to improve care and improve business at present. We are a privately held company that has been in the healthcare industry for 45 years. We manufacture in 21 different facilities domestically and mostly in Central America. We have 24/7 production, and we supply to all countries and continents at present. We have about 25,000 SKUs, which is both a blessing and a curse, and we have almost 2,000 employees. We provide orthopedic soft goods, bracing, those type products, surgical accessories, including patient and provider protective gear, wound care, and even healthcare technology to help manage inventory in hospitals, surgery centers, and physician offices. So let's talk about how we got started on this process. We set out with a goal to provide better customer service levels, and that led to our infamous bubble chart. So we looked at what are the different inputs into better service levels, making a product on time, managing our sales orders, managing our inventory allocation, how to have a robust and resilient supply chain. And we kept going back to one particular area, and you'll see that in the red bubble there, which is a better number picker. To use a very layman's term, we needed a better way to forecast. And so we looked at all the different pieces and inputs, and we said, well, this is really kind of our first thing that we need to tackle so that we can have better service levels. So let's talk about where we started. We were a prior DeMantra user. We had implemented DeMantra in 1999 and made minimal changes to that. Unfortunately, that system was extremely customized, and because at the time we felt like we knew better than what we were being told to do, and so our supply chain planners had decided that this is the way we should do things, and so we customized the system to do what we thought it should do. We also had a single point of failure. We had one particular person that was the keeper of the system, and they were the only person who really understood things start to finish. So what that person was doing every single month was printing out about 300 pages double-sided of proposed forecast information on all of our items. Remember, 25,000 SKUs. And so on the first day of the month, once the plan was generated, they would start out going through that report. And at some point during the month, they would get pulled off to something else because, again, this is not their only job. And they would stop and no longer continue working down that process. Next month, the process continued, so forth and so on. The individual that was responsible for this was held very in high accountability for back orders. And so their natural bias was that the forecast that was being produced was low. So that every month they spent time basically increasing the forecast and the number that the number picker had given them. We didn't have any input from sales and marketing at that point because no one wants to look at a 300-page double-sided report to determine what needs to be forecast. In addition, we're a highly distributed business, so 80% of our orders go through distribution, and therefore the distribution trends can vary from what our end user customer demands are. In addition, because no one wanted to look at that 300-page report or go through item by item, we didn't have a formal S&OP process. Back in 1999, we put something in place, and after a few months, our marketing folks and our sales personnel said, look, this is just a complete and total waste of my time. You're going to do what you want to do anyway, so I'm just going to spend these 3 hours doing something that's more productive in my particular area. Let's talk about our journey. We decided to use Oracle Demand Management Cloud. We had ventured into the cloud before. We are a JD Edwards Enterprise One customer, and we have done a lot of work in the on-prem side there. We have other cloud applications, and we looked at both on-prem and cloud for Oracle Demand Management and Demantra, and decided for a couple of reasons that I'll mention later that Oracle Demand Management Cloud was the best solution for us. One of the things I like about cloud is the fact that it really, especially with Demand Management Cloud, it really takes the best of all the worlds, combining what Oracle, Demand Management, Demantra, all the different features and functionalities that are most important get put into cloud. In addition, in my opinion, it forces a best practice model because the flexibility and functionality that we customized in our earlier plans we didn't have the ability to do that moving forward. So we did have some times when people really challenged the best practice implementation. And the great thing, and Anil mentioned this earlier, they have people in industry or who have been in industry. And so we were able to gain the trust of our users to say, this is going to work. Trust me, you've got to, I promise that it will work this way. We just need to go stick with the best practice implementation. In addition, we finally staffed a demand planning position to say that this is this person's number one goal. Now, remember, we're a 45-year-old company with 25,000 SKUs, and we should have had a demand planner on staff for many years, but now it became a priority. In addition, we really wanted to have a review by exception. It is not feasible for someone to look at 25,000 SKUs every month, and we wanted to change that to an exception review so that they could go through and see the things that had the most impact to our customers, the highest impact to our bottom line, the things that changed our inventory valuation most heavily. So this review by exception was real important to us. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a highly customized, we know better mentality on the forecast algorithms that were taken into place. And so we really pushed hard to make sure that we did our forecast going forward based on statistical models that were available to us in Demand Management Cloud. Very little input from the field and from other departments was a problem. And so we actually built in integration with Salesforce.com and JD Edwards, our single source of truth, for additional measures so that we could see new product introduction information. We could see opportunities being tracked in Salesforce and where they were in their pipeline so that we could determine how that was going to impact our future forecast needs. And we also decided that now's the time to educate everyone on what a true S&OP process is and to train people to understand what that process is rather than an individual review of SKUs. In addition, we decided that from a strategic standpoint, we know where we want to be. We're just not quite sure how we want to get there. And so we engaged in an executive strategy planning session to help us better define those areas. So let me show you a little bit about what we do each and every day and each and every month. So on a daily basis, we have, again, in the gray, our single source of truth, JD Edwards Enterprise One. We take information from there, including items, hierarchies, bookings history, sample history, etc., and we input that into Oracle Demand Management Cloud. We run our plan refresh, review any new products, review any exceptions, and then send that approved forecast back to our J.D. Edwards MRP MPS system every day. Now, as you can imagine, especially during trying times such as now, it's very important that we understand that patient and provider protective gear is probably more important right now than bracing because we're not having sports injuries due to no sports in a lot of areas. So this allows us to react very quickly to changes in our demand and changes in supply, frankly. In addition, you'll notice on the right, we again consider J.D. Edwards our single source of truth. So even field adjustments coming in through the pipeline and through inquiries to our sales reps are going through J.D. Edwards and into Oracle Demand Management Cloud. On a monthly basis, we take that same information and we run our statistical forecast engine. We do a couple things differently during this time. We do an exception review by demand planner. We have a 2-day dead period, and we've managed to do this in 2 days ever since we've gone live, which is just phenomenal considering that it used to take us, a month, and it didn't happen completely. But we have this exception review and look at the outliers, so to speak, to say, here are the things that we need to adjust. Here's the things that we need to look at and know that we need to change now. We also look at other measures because remember, our sales reps are inputting their pipeline and their demands, and marketing's putting new products in, and our international team or our OEM team are also giving us input so we can review those other measures. And something we've never done before was we analyzed our forecast accuracy. So we look back to say, how do we do compared to what we thought we were going to do 3 months ago? How do we do last month compared forecast versus sales, so forth and so on. And then again, that information is fed in, and our supply side comes from MPS and MRP and J.D. Edwards. So our journey started in April of last year. We had a great participation and a great team overall from both DeRoyal and AVATA, and we did make our CRP sign-off. I think part of what we always deal with when we're implementing the systems is employee acceptance. And so we really took the time to make sure everyone was educated and that we had, made sure that their fears were managed and that they were a part of the process. And so our CRP took place as per the planned timeline. In addition, we had a strong technical team, and so our system integration testing took place in June. And then our user acceptance testing actually took place with no outside assistance, and the DeRoyal team actually navigating and performing the UAT because we felt like that we understood things well enough at that point. As we went into a go live, we actually decided we wanted to do a 4-week parallel process. So we got about 2 weeks into that parallel process, and the supply chain folks came to me and they said, Angie, can we please go live now? And I'm like, what? I thought we were going to do a 4-week parallel. And they're like, look, we've done this for 2 weeks. Everything coming out of DM Cloud is so much better than what we have now. And so we're spending a lot of time doing double duty. So we'd really like to change things now. So I think that's a true statement of how well this worked, in the fact that when people a lot of people want to hold on to old systems. Our crew did not want to hold on to old systems. They wanted to move forward with bigger and better things. So our outcomes. The cloud implementation definitely increased our speed of value. I call this better, more cost-effective, and faster. I hate to use the word cheaper because it's not cheaper from that standpoint. I don't want to minimize the value of it, but I want to say it did allow us to get to value much more quickly. We certainly have a better opportunity now to focus on our outliers. We probably reduced our time. Again, we went down to 2 days on a full review, but our administrative time was reduced by about 40% throughout this review process and throughout the looking at the forecast and looking at the outliers. The fact that we're able to measure and check for accuracy is huge for us because that lets us know what we need to change going forward. And the fact that we're having both marketing and sales provide input allows us to hold them accountable for increased inventory or for maybe not meeting a demand, but it gives us a sense of continuous support and accountability for the entire team. One of the things that we took the time to do was a data review and cleanup. I know a lot of people think I don't have time for this. It was huge. It allowed us to look at measures and hierarchies that we didn't necessarily need, or maybe we needed 10 years ago, but we don't need now. So that was something that was very, very healthy for us. The fact that we defined this demand planner role and staffed that was huge, because now we have a single source of truth as far as that's concerned. This has allowed us to make a more accurate definition of the demand on our manufacturing facilities. Before, again, the heavy bias toward being under forecast caused us to be over forecast. And we have seen our inventory levels begin to decrease over time. And now we're in the process of defining a formal S&OP process. So in conclusion, cloud afforded us the opportunity to quickly see return on our investment and really focus on the entire process. Because if you remember, the bubble chart showed the number picker, better number picker, only has one element. So we were able to take that excuse or that option out of the equation and move to the point where we could actually focus on more than just demand management. At this point, I'll hand it over to Rob.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it. Great story.
Okay, hope everybody's healthy and safe and their families are doing well through everything that's going on right now. My name is Rob Demkowski. I'm the Senior Director of Supply Chain IT for Bimbo Canada. We're a division of the Group of Bimbo Bakeries. I'll get into a little bit here talking about who Group of Bimbo is and where we're heading down our path right now. Can I really talk about a phase zero design approach as we get into this, and also give you some ideas of where we see the advantages moving from the current Demantra platform, and even a little bit of the supply chain planning out of ASCP in the supply chain as we move forward here. So who are we? A lot of times being here in North America, when you get farther north, a lot of people don't know who Grupo Bimbo is. I always like to say, there's a lot of products that we own globally. If you get into Latin American countries, Grupo Bimbo is a very well-known name, a juggernaut of the industry in Mexico, and heading south, we are fairly large as a whole, and we can talk about that a little bit. But some of the big products that you'll hear about in the States, I would say, would be like Sara Lee, Entenmann's products, and so forth. They're all within our portfolio. As you can see for Bimbo Canada, we have a lot of products that are there. Some are products that are cross-functional, that we consider are becoming more of global products, like Little Bites, which has been a very big success, Takis, and then you can see many of the bread products that we have across the region within Canada. As you can only imagine, and as many of you have probably gone through this as of recently, we've been deemed as a priority to market in the last few weeks as stores have been closing down and so forth. We've been manufacturing as many SKUs as we can to get out to the market and try to keep the store shelves full as folks have been acquiring stuff. Though maybe not selling as fast as toilet paper as we see all over online, we haven't been far behind. Our plants have been running 24/7 over the last few weeks during this crisis, and the planning tools have been a bit of a help to us to help look at some of these spikes. As you can see, even from a Bimbo Canada perspective, there's 18 plants, 17 distribution centers, 198 depots that we deliver out to. We have some retail thrift stores that exist, a little over 4,000 associates, roughly 1,100 routes. As you know, we're a store-door delivery company, over 30,000 plus points of sale, and roughly we deal with 1,000 plus independent operators in the industry. I always like to put in perspective of what the supply chain's like in Canada, because when you look at a map, it doesn't look like it's so large and massive in a lot of cases. For us to ship product from our Vancouver facility to Winnipeg, which in some cases we have to, just because of the different products that are manufactured, it's a 2-day truck trip for us to be able to move throughout our Western organization. A lot of times it's 12 to 16 hours to go through planning and figuring out what we're going to do from like a Vancouver to a Calgary, just going through the pass. We deal with a lot of uniqueness, of course, with weather and so forth. And of course, there's a lot of seasonal aspects to our business too that we take specifically during the summer when the barbecue season is going. You're in the snow all winter, and as soon as it gets nice, boy, the Canadians love the barbecue, which is fantastic. Back about, I'd say it's about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, Grupo Bimbo from Mexico purchased us from Maple Leaf Foods. You can kind of see over the years, the term was Canada bread as it grew for years, acquired multiple bakeries along the way. And we also have a snack cake company that we purchased called Sean, which actually makes the Hostess brand in Canada too, has the rights to that. And then we also have as of recently, Stone Mill Slow Crafted Bakehouse, which is an all natural, handmade. It's quite an impressive facility to see. But since being acquired by Grupo Bimbo Corporate in 2014, and my apologies, 6 years ago, we have been on a journey to move through to convert over to R12. Our next step now is moving to the cloud products. So our cloud journey, as you can see here, speaking of the cloud journey, you can see that what we've decided to do is we've just finally finished up doing an implementation of getting all of Bimbo Canada onto one platform of an ERP. This is the first time in 30 plus years that we've, as systems have been available that we're actually on one platform. We had a hodgepodge of different things that we replaced when Bimbo acquired us, all the way from some SAP tools to some other legacy systems that were 40 plus years old. So, our company's gone through significant changes over the last few years, getting moved on to an R12 instance, using the tool sets that were there. And we got into a whole process of, why are we moving to the cloud? What's the reason for the cloud? What's the business case? As many of you know, there's, can be a lot of noise to the business as you're moving and doing changes and so forth. And what we've put together is kind of a pitch of this as more of an upgrade to get a lot more features and functions. And we're not going to do a big bang as we move over everything. As you can see by this, we're working on the demand management piece, the supply planning, the S&OP processes. We do utilize Maximo for maintenance. We've been working on WM Cloud, tracking our longer shelf life items and so forth. We're doing a core master data cleanup. I know Angie mentioned that earlier. It's been really key to us. We've set up multiple agile sprints that we're running for getting data cleaned up. It's amazing how you just went through all this and everybody cleaned up the data, and how quickly the business forgets how important master data is to managing their process. We like to say that there's kind of three pillars of how a system's run. There's truly the technical piece, which is, I do the configuration, I check the boxes, and I make sure that the code works the way that it needs to. But then there's the other two buckets that are really, I need to manage my master data, which the business owns, and I need to manage my processes, make sure that I'm abiding by my SOPs and my processes to go. The last two pieces that you see that are on there is the core HR and then the ERP. Our goal is to be done by next April, being completely migrated off of the R12 and move to the cloud tools and their replacements as we go forward. So if I look at kind of some of our golden rules that we have, and this is something we've learned early on, and we've been working with the team, and I just thought that this would be interesting because it's helped give us a lot of guidance. Our role is always to stick with Oracle first. We're moving to a public cloud, so we want to make sure that the integrations and so forth are there. We're staying away from any past developments. No customizations allowed. That master data is really key. And then, we've really put that fourth rule in there, follow the release management for the new functionalities and stuff. That's really going to be one of the big learning curves as we go through. We're already live on OTM Cloud, and we're experiencing that already and, getting some good learnings out of that, but some functions that we're actually working through the process. So that was a little bit of the background on, where we're at and, what we're doing. I think some of the current landscape, just so that you're aware, you've heard me kind of mention a little bit, is, we're on our 12 EBS environments, utilizing finance, procurement, order management, manufacturing, Oracle WM, kind of the standard suite. We do utilize Demantra at this point in time, and it's a pretty big key to, developing our forecast. In ASCP, we're using the MRP function, we're using the distribution requirement function, and one of our business units actually uses the global available to promise as we're coming through there. I didn't really as I mentioned, we're on OTM. We have a set of subsystems that are out there, like a pick the light solution at some of the locations for the fast moving products. And then we also have a custom app right now that's doing our stored or our DSD solution that's out in the market that we integrate with. But, our goal is normally to prove that Oracle can do it. And if Oracle can do, 80+% of it, we want to focus on that. What we've learned over the years is keeping it integrated makes things a lot simpler than having multiple interfaces and trying to figure out what's happening between the solutions. So we started on this journey, and I spent a lot of time talking to Anil about this early on. We just got done with the implementation. We looked at where we're at, what we're doing, and how we wanted to move on to the next time frame. And what we want to do is do a phase 0 discovery. What I find in projects is we all have this tendency to want to just tear into it, start developing, and if anybody's businesses are the same ways that ours are, we always want to go right to the solve. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to develop a roadmap to guide Bimbo Canada supply chain on this planning evolution. So we took our as is of what we had today and understand the current and future business objectives. Where are we trying to take our planning cycles? Where are we trying to manage? Where are the biggest costs at, so that we could see how we could pull some of those out of there and understand that, demand and supplying processes. So, AVATA came in and helped us run some workshops where we gathered those key business requirements and gaps. We reviewed all the chem leads that were there. We looked at the project roles and skill sets that were there, building a RACI to say, here's what we're going to be able to move towards, and what kind of people you need in these roles. I looked at our change readiness, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, because this is one of the big bonuses that we found about the cloud. Future demand planning processes and design elements, future supply planning processes and design elements. That's where we're trying to really pull from AVATA, using their expertise to say, hey, here's what we're seeing as best practices everywhere, guys, and where people are trying to get to, where they're trying to take that data that you've gathered up in these tools and really make it information so you can accelerate your business. Coming from the outside, looking in, and trying to help educate some of our business folks. Here's some different ways to look at things. And overall supply chain touch points, let's not just develop this stuff in a box. Let's make sure everybody understands how it is or how it comes together. And then put together that implementation roadmap, which we're in the middle of actually rolling out at this point in time. So, at a high level, if you look at this, the executive summary of what we got out of phase 0, I would look at it in an agile aspect of it. Was a 5-week sprint, roughly, or engagement, as we stated here. And basically what we did is we said, okay, let's determine what we can go after in 2020. What's kind of a like-to-like transition? Where are some of the areas that we need to focus in? Where are some of the improvements that we want to work on? As I always say, we kind of got the elephant put together, and we're going to eat the elephant together, but we can't take it all in one bite. So what are the chunks and segments, that we're going to work on this elephant as we work through? So, we did some assessments, forecasting, planning, spending some time in the manufacturing, materials and distribution, S&OP, and so forth. And what we found is that the supply chain models can cover all of Bimbo Canada's functional requirements, only with a few minor gaps. To give you guys an idea, in ASCP and Demanture, we probably had roughly 35 to 40 chemicals that were developed. Though a lot of those were reports and stuff because, the older versions of Oracle maybe weren't as friendly to be able to pull reports and get information out of there. There are a lot of those. As of this point, and as of 2 days ago, I think we just closed the last gap. We're not seeing anything that we can't use the current tool as we move forward. So that's a big win to us. Bimbo's requirements says Oracle and AVATA's recommended best practices. Both groups have kind of pushed us to be able to have these best practices in place and try to really use the system, because if you can change your mindset a little bit, there's a lot of other fancy tools that you can utilize as you start moving forward with the tool set. And a lot of those advantages we're finding over on the S&OP side. If you follow some of these standard practices, here's some information that you get on the back half of it. A lot of our S&OP process currently today is, a bunch of folks that do stuff on spreadsheets and, access databases and massive algorithms that takes them forever to calculate and so forth. Oracle Cloud will enhance users' ability to perform job functions with the seeded analytics. Again, we're going to get away from some of the custom reports we've had to develop, and a lot of our planners will say sometimes in the older system they're more of a data jockey than they are actually a planner, because a lot of their work spent on crunching numbers through spreadsheets and data and so forth. So we came out of this phase last fall, and basically what that did for us is set us up for some success working on the Cloud DM. Implementation, we're right in the process of it. We're getting ready in the next couple of weeks to start our demand management CRP and then UAT. Those have just been slid out a couple of weeks just because of all the virus issues that have been out there. Our team's been especially the planning team has been very focused on getting demand, trying to get product out to market for everybody at the stores. The second piece is the Cloud SP. We're really divided that into a couple segments that's out there that's going to happen over the next year. And what that is it's really focusing on MRP, and then DRP as the second piece, getting our users all up to speed on that. Working on the Cloud S&OP, as I said, with some of the bonuses, anything from the financial side to the SP to the DM supplied functions that are out there have been a big bonus to us. And then, of course, integrations moving on. There's some other things that we've discovered down the road that we want to get to, is the production scheduling, as that's now been released, and seeing some of the stuff that's coming down the road that will end up getting added to our roadmap for 2021. So from a conclusion perspective, there's a couple things that we really found out of this, and I can't emphasize this enough, is the ease of the use of the new tool set in cloud. I always use the 7 screens combined to one example. So I have a slide that I normally present that shows 7 to 9 applets that are opened up as I'm looking up sourcing rules and figuring out how I'm going to change them and making sure that it's all done in the right place. You can do that on one screen in the new tool. It's very Amazonish, data at one click, not opening new screens. You can drill in. And a big one for us is the millennial buy-in in the new tool. It's very similar to what everybody's used to using. We've had a lot of problems in the past with the planners, again, having issues with being data jockeys instead of being planners. They like the look, the feel. They're all drooling in the sessions for how fast can we move to do this. So that helped me with the change management. When the business wants something and they're hungry for it, not that we won't have some opportunities, they'll make it work because it's going to make their job easier. They love that look and feel, eliminates the change management. And finally, the reporting capabilities is user-friendly, less custom reports. Chemly's removed 15 to 20 nets from Demantra specifically. And then no customizations needed to be done for DM at this point in time. We're going back to that core vanilla so we can really get on that, every quarter upgrade where we're finding new functionality that we can turn on. And, I'm a big believer that once we get the base in, then we can really start sweating the asset and utilize that asset as we move forward, especially with all these new quarterly functions that are out there. Not saying every quarter there might be something for us, but there's a lot of nuggets out there to help us get better at what we do. So basically, that's us in a fold. I know I was all over the place a little bit of where we're at in our journey, but wanted to try to give you guys a good feeling for that. So this time I'd like to hand it over to, I believe Kevin's picking up after me, and we'll go from there.
Great. So thank you, Rob and Angie, for both sharing your stories. As a reminder, we have a question panel on the right-hand side. We're coming short on time, but if you get your questions there and we don't answer them today, we will respond to you via email. So this is Kevin Martin. I'm Vice President of Sales and Solutions for AVATA. And being in supply chain for over 25 years, it's great to see how everyone is responding to these current conditions and how supply chain has really become front and center in these discussions. So first of all, I wanted to thank Sesh for giving a view into some of the new functionality in cloud products. As customers are pushing out demands and in some cases aggressively pulling them in, knowing that the tools in Oracle's cloud products of doing replenishment and backlog management is critical for building, an overall resilient supply chain. So let's get to our questions. And again, if you have additional ones, please put them on the right side panel. So the first question is to Angie. With the current crisis, from your workforce aspect, how is DeRoyal thinking about, office support workforce, and operations workforce to manage risks of sickness or shutdown as you've had to ramp up production in certain areas?
Kevin, as you are well aware, DeRoyal is considered an essential business. It's essential business personnel during this time. We started a business continuity plan about a month to 6 weeks ago with regards to the things that we were seeing, and we knew the impact would be strong in the healthcare supply side of things. So we have remote workers. We are practicing social distancing. Our manufacturing personnel are at work and are wearing protective gear, and so we've tried to manage those supplies very well. Several years ago, we chose Central America over other locations for our manufacturing processes, and so we have been able to leverage that during this time. Naturally, we are all getting supplies from all across the world, and so we're starting to see some effects on our supply chain. But I will say that VM Cloud has allowed us to manage those supplies and those finished goods that we need to produce very well. And the reporting that we're doing now and looking at on a daily basis would not have been possible prior to this. So we're continuing to work through these new uncharted waters and looking forward to getting to the other side so that we can continue further implementation. And again, unprecedented times. Hopefully we'll have a lot of lessons learned, and when we make that look back, we'll be able to do things even better should we have a situation like this in the future.
Great. And if everybody can stay on for just a few more minutes, we'll ask Rob one question and then wrap up the session and then respond via email for any additional questions. So, Rob, we see what you're having to respond quickly for replenishing store shelves right now. And by the way, I think my kids are hoarding the little bites, so you can come to us if you need any backstock. So from what you've learned so far, what avenues are you considering to make your supply chain more resilient in the future? Are you looking at what you're building right now in the products and having to shift some of those options that you're doing?
Yeah, some of the methods that actually kicked in is some of our planning methods that we utilize for our uplifts that go during the summer or around any of the holiday spikes. Quite honestly, you think about the different holidays and vacation times and then back to schools and so forth. Some of those methods have all been in place. Some things that we've had to change up quickly for within the forecast and the planning tools is, we eliminated some of the slower moving breads for this period of time so that we can really manufacture volume, plan that out. We know what the most efficient products are to run in the bakeries, trying to get more of the mass than, a little bit of everything. Some other pieces that are out there is, putting into the plan some of our spikes that we know about, We're also concerned that, there's going to be a wave that hits here eventually where we go from, that large spike to where it, all of a sudden it's kind of like a bullwhip. And at the back end of the whip, suddenly you got a lot of product that's being returned as we get the shelves full. So we're utilizing the different functions, in our current applications. And as we're migrating into the cloud, those have started to become some of the questions that are being put onto the table of how can we utilize these tools more to manage something in some form of an effect like this as we go forward.
Great. Okay. Well, we're right at time, so let's wrap up. One thing that we wanted to share, AVATA offers a cloud assessment for you, free cloud readiness assessment. So you can see, how you can improve similar to what you've heard here on the stories and some of the functionality that session provided. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to us, contact anyone at AVATA. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Christina Steiner.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, everyone here that attended has entered for a chance to win a free pass to MBX and Open World, and we will announce that winner via email sometime in August. And so finally, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. A special thanks to our presenters, Sesh, Angie, and Rob. It's a pleasure hearing from you today about your journeys to cloud and also all that you're doing within your supply chains for our communities right now. We appreciate that. If you have any questions regarding this presentation, any items that maybe Anil mentioned, our cloud consultation, or other ways that we may assist you, please feel free to contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And we hope that everyone stays healthy and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Thank you.